Good morning, traders. Edge with high-tech trading analysis. This morning I want to take just a brief moment to discuss one of the newest products that I've released called my Magic Menu. Now, if any of you have ever watched any of my previous videos or own any of my products, you know that I place an icon in NinjaTrader's toolbar. This is a drop-down icon where I can left-click on it, show the different kinds of plots and draw objects or various types of things that are within that particular indicator, and turn them on and off without going back into the indicator properties. You can see that I've got quite a few indicators on the chart. Chart gets quite cluttered. But I want to see all of these. These are all tools that I use in various methodologies. I just might not want to look at them all at the same time. So I've given myself the ability to middle click on these icons and just hide everything that's showing. Now, it's still calculating. Everything is still running in the background. It's just hidden from my chart. Well, what I wanted to do was maybe consolidate these into one icon that I could place on my chart. And through this one icon, I could see all of the indicators that I had on my chart and control them like I'm doing already in each individual indicator. Now, in the end, this didn't work out as well for myself as I had hoped. But at the same time, I had released this to a couple customers to test, and in the end, they've convinced me that even though this didn't quite work out the way that I had hoped, that many other people might be able to benefit from this. So let me just take that chart away, and let's look at a default type chart. These are all default. I've got a 5-minute NQ chart here. I'm loading 100 days worth of data, and I've got a ton of different indicators on here just to simulate what someone might be looking at. If we right click on this and we go into the properties of our chart, we can see down below we've got the magic menu on here, which is the indicator that we're going to be talking about. But we're also looking at VWAP and the current day high, open, high, low, swings, pivots, have a price line on here, a bar timer, the net change for the day, zigzags are on here, and then just for sample, I've got a couple panels down here. We put a MACD down here in one panel, an RSI down here in another panel, and then I've overlaid the CCI onto the RSI just to simulate two indicators in the same panel. So we're going to say okay to that. The idea behind all of this, 3 things. I want to be able to hide all the plots on my chart. I want to be able to hide them by indicator, the entire indicator, and or any given plot of that indicator. Now, second thing, I want to do the same thing to draw objects. If an indicator is putting a draw object on the chart, I want to be able to hide that. And then the last thing is the indicator's visibility. There are times where just turning on plots and just turning off draw objects is not going to clear my chart. And I'm going to have to turn the visibility of that particular indicator on and off to get that to hide and show properly. There are some issues with that I'll discuss here in just a minute. Before I discuss those, we'll come back into the indicator and we'll look at the properties of my magic menu. We can see that I've got an icon placed in NinjaTrader's toolbar right here. In the property settings, this is for a mouse button click. We've got a left mouse button, a middle mouse button, and a right mouse button. On a normal Windows machine, we have mice that have at least 3 buttons. The middle button is your scroll wheel. We set this up so that when we left click our indicator up here, we get a drop down. And that drop down is going to be associated to what we have here. If we want to look at the plots, we set that to left. If we wanted to look at the visibility, we could set that to left. Or if we wanted to look at the draw objects, we can set any of these three to any of the three buttons. Now, I need to mention, I don't have this protected so that you could say left, left, left. Don't do that. It's not going to work. Maybe one day I'll go back in and not let you do that, but for now, just please don't do that. There are no other properties involved in the indicator itself other than I place a hide text label here, which if that's checked will hide the indicator label from the chart. And then the icon down here, I give you the ability to change the background and the foreground of that when that's hidden so that you can match your theme. Notice how that matches real nice to the light theme. If I had this on a black theme, this would be much darker up here, and I might want to change those colors to match. I give you that ability. But the way we had this set up, if I left click on this icon, I see all of the indicators that are on my chart that have plots associated to them. And if I hover over that particular indicator, it will tell me and show me what those plots are. I can see here the price line that we have the last time checked, but these two have dashes by them. That means that I can't set that. That means that that has already been set as transparent in that indicator. And if you go back into your indicator, set something to transparent, I'm not going to let you turn it off because I'm assuming that's the way you want it. So we'll show that. Now, a few differences here is you see the dashes here. If we come up to order flow VWAP, we're going to see that VWAP, which is our white line here, is checked, but our standard deviations are not. That's just because we had those off. I had already come into this and turned those off. We won't see a check mark, but we can turn them back on. So we left clicked on our icon and we see all of the indicators. Now these aren't necessarily all the indicators on the chart. They're just indicators that have plots. Notice the plots down here in the MACD in our second panel. MACD second panel. If I left click that, we are going to hide all of those plots. Or if I came in and just wanted to hide any particular individual one, I could do that. But notice that if we're in a second panel and all we're doing is hiding the plots, that the panel still remains. Now I can come back in here and manually adjust this up and down, but that kind of defeats the purpose. But that is a drawback of just hiding plots in any panel other than your price panel. If we remember back from our properties, we left click this to see all the indicators that have plots. If we right click this, we see all the indicators that have draw objects. If we hover over the order flow, we see the order flow has just a ton of draw objects. They're drawing a region, a separate region on every single day. Now, I can turn them all on and off, or I can turn them all on and off individually. Now, in this particular case, you're going to have a hard time finding the one that you want, but you have that capability. Notice all the trend lines. If we hover over the trend lines, well, I say all the trend lines. There's only 5 trend lines on there, but if we click on that, we can hide any one individually, or we can hide the group as a whole. So this is a pretty cluttered chart, but If we come in, take the trend lines off, come in, take the zigzags off, pivots, that's not too bad. And I can quickly and easily go back and turn them on anytime that I might want. Now, couple things, some limitations. Let's say we're looking at this, we're looking at all of our indicators. I click all, I turn all of my indicators off. I right click this. I click all and I hide all draw objects from the chart. Notice that I have a couple issues still. Because we only hid the plots and the draw objects, our panels are still here. I'm also seeing my bar timer. Apparently the bar timer is being manually rendered and is not a plot or a draw object. Same with our net change. Well, look at our VWAP. What is it with VWAP? If we come in and look at the properties of our VWAP, we can see that this particular indicator, the default order flow VWAP in NinjaTrader, sets an above and a below color. Any plot that has a rising or falling or above, below, or sets multiple colors to different series along that plot is no longer going to be able to work with this particular indicator. Now, if we left click on this, we'll turn all those back on. Remember, we're looking at our white line right here. If we come back into VWAP, I see it's checked. If I uncheck it, we can see that the price marker goes away, but it's not going to affect this. It actually is. If we went back in to our indicator properties, we can see that these are all transparent. It did set the plot so that we might not see it. This is overriding that. So, limitations. When only dealing with plots and draw objects, our panels remain. We can't remove manually rendered items. And any plots that are multicolored is not going to work, but everything else is. We'll turn our swings off. We'll turn our current days off. I mean, you can see how nice and easy this makes it. Although we had to discuss some of these limitations. Let's discuss this before I go too far. Okay. So all we're really kind of looking at is VWAP. If I right click on this, this was all my plots. Now, if I click all, it's going to swap them. It's going to turn everything that was off on and everything that was on off. And this is actually by design. I wanted to be able to flop back and forth real easy. So that allowed me to do that. But I can already see that it would be convenient to be able to say, even if they were like this, to be able to click on something and they'd all go off. Possibly work on that in a future update. Now, from our properties, remember, if we middle click this, we're going to see all of the indicators because now we're looking at visibility of that indicator. Let's talk about this for a second. If we go into our indicators properties and let's just come down to the swings, and we have a visible property here in the visual group. If we uncheck that, and we're looking at our red and our green dots for our swings, and we go ahead and apply, that hides that indicator from the chart. But it does much more than that. Those swings are no longer calculating. There is nothing about that indicator that is running. Nothing. It's just still in your list. I show in the drop-down that their visibility is off, I can turn that visibility back on or turn that visibility off. Now, I'm showing that I did it here with an X. Before, I'm showing that the indicator had done that with a dash. But I still allow you to switch back and forth whether the indicator had that or not. Now, getting back to what I was saying, I can actually set the visibility of the indicator without refreshing the chart. Anytime you go into the properties, you click that, you click OK and apply, it refreshes everything. The goal behind all of this was not to have to refresh the chart and still be able to hide and show everything. Now that because of the limitations of the panels and the manual objects and the multicolored plots, turning the visibility of that indicator on and off was the only way to completely hide that indicator. If you do that without refreshing the chart, it's not going to hide that panel. It would hide it from the price panel. It would hide it from this panel. But now remember, the visibility turns all calculations off. So something like those swings or something like a profile that accumulates volume over time. During the time you had that visibility off, it wasn't doing any of those calculations. The minute you turn the visibility on, all your calculations, well, depending on what your calculations were, could be off significantly. Really, when it comes down to it, from an indicator standpoint, visibility, property, we pretty much must refresh our chart. What that means is that if I left click on this MACD, I'm going to turn the visibility of that indicator off, but I am going to refresh my entire chart. So everything that's on it has to reload again. This was somewhat what I was trying to get away from, but the only choice in some cases. All right, it's pretty much as simple as that. We set up which of our button clicks we want to use for plots, visibility, and draw objects. As great as this is, right, there are some limitations. That pretty much covers it. This is a pretty simple little thing. As always, thanks for your time, and be safe in this crazy world.